But before we begin, here are a few reminders. For the comfort and safety of those around you, remain seated during the presentation, keeping your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the theater. And please, supervise your children.
Permanecer sentados, por favor.
Eating and drinking are permitted, but we ask that you treat our theater as you would your own living room. On second floor, please deposit all trash in the waste cans. Thank you. As a courtesy to our presenters and everyone else in the theater, refrain from flash photography and turn off or silence your cell phones. Also, we ask that there be no texting during the presentation. Protection lamp is out. And now, Stage 23 and Walt Disney Imagineering are pleased to present the making of Star Tours. The adventures continue.
Star Tours really began when George Lucas came to Walt Disney Imagineering and happened to be wandering through the halls saying, "What's going on? What are you working on?" And at the time, we were starting to work on a new flight simulator attraction and how we might integrate that into Tomorrowland at the park. And George said, "Gee, this would be terrific. I'd love to work on this." And as a result of that, the next time George came down to visit, we had up on a storyboard a number of different story ideas of how we could integrate the Star Wars characters and mythologies with this flight simulator. And 2 years later, Star Tours was born.
Please welcome Imagineer Tom Fitzgerald.
But, you know, it's been a few years between the original Star Tours show and now, and that's what happens when the adventures continue. So, how many of you came last year when we talked about the original Star Tours show? Some of you? Great. How many of you have been on the new Star Tours ride? How many of you have been on it more than once? 54? Really? That's more than I've done. Anyway, we're going to take you behind the scenes today and show you how the adventures did continue. Of course, we all know that Star Tours really began right here at Disneyland. Even though it's traveled around the world, this is where it started. And this is opening day. And this is a very young George Lucas and a very young Michael Eisner at the opening of the attraction. But today we're going to go show you how we went from that early days, and we decided to shave that day, to this one, which is The Adventures Continue, how we made the journey. Now, a lot of you I know for years have been saying, when are you going to update Star Tours? When are you going to update Star Tours? Well, the reality is, we've been working on it for a long time. In fact, the new show really got its start in 1998. I got a call from Lucasfilm, and my buddy up there said, George is deep at work on episode 1, and he has the perfect sequence to make the new Star Tours show based on. So come on up. So a couple of us Imagineers traveled up to Skywalker Ranch and met with George Lucas, and he showed us one sequence from the movie, which was the pod race. And he said, this will be perfect. And in fact, we did think it was a great idea, and we came up with a storyline that was all about the fact that Star Tours was going to be taking guests to the Boonty Eve Classic, and we were going to be sightseeing, and of course something always goes horribly wrong in this attraction, and we were going to get sucked up into a pod race. And so we actually boarded out the whole show. We had the pre-show, here's the Star Speeder getting ready to take us to the Boonty Eve Classic. The droids in the droid room were going to be building engines for the Boonty Eve Classic. Rex was still there because George said, you know, the Classic goes on and every year, so our time period would stay where it was. So Rex was still there, which was great. Interestingly enough, even back then, in 1998, we had decided that we were going to make the new show in 3D. And these were an early sketch by Luke Mayran, who did all the storyboards for this version of the show, of how our glasses were going to look like young Anakin's glasses. Because every time we do a 3D show, we have to come up with another phrase for what you're putting on, because we never want to say 3D glasses. So we were already in 3D, and we started to have fun with it. I mean, this time we decided, we actually should not make the wrong turn. Wouldn't it be great for a guest if we actually went straight down the load corridor? Haven't you always wondered what was supposed to happen when Rex made that wrong turn? But in this version, and I'm only showing you a couple of boards because we got a lot of ground to cover. In this version, we popped out into space. We inadvertently, a tractor beam brought us down. Pit droids got us ready, attached some engines on us, and off we went, becoming part of the race. Some things like Sebulba remained in the show, the final show. We had this idea for a drill bit that he was going to throw at our windshield. And we loved the idea, the fact of having the windshield break. We thought would be very cool since we were staying on a planet. We didn't have any problem with atmosphere. That was kind of a cool idea. And of course, we were going to win. We always win. And then we waited. And the thing was, because George only showed us that little clip of the film, and like all of you, we had to wait for opening day of the movie to find out what else was in the story. There was that sort of nagging thing in the back of our minds saying, well, what's going to be in episode 2? And then when episode 2 came out, again, because we didn't have any entree into where George was going with it, naturally we said, well, what's going to be in episode 3? And so we waited, and then when the trilogy was over, I had the tough decision of sitting down and saying, okay, we're going to get one shot at this. What sequence do we pick? And it was too tough. For a number of reasons, but mostly because of you guys, our fans, realizing that the way that you visit the park and the attractions has changed so dramatically from when we did the original show, that no matter how good an episode we created, pretty soon you'd say, I've seen it, I've done it a number of times. And so because of our fans, our annual pass holders, said we've got to have a different idea for this. How do we keep this attraction fresh? So that you can come back again and again and again. And the answer really lay in the fact that technology had progressed to the point where it's like, well, wait a minute. Why does it just have to be one adventure? It's sort of like that Imagineering joke. How many Imagineers does it take to change a light bulb? Why does it have to be a light bulb? So we said, well, with digital technology, we can take that old 70mm film boot cabinet off the back, we can go digital in 3D, and then we can have more stories to tell. So the next thing was to go to Australia, where George was filming episode 3, and I said, George, here's the idea. It's kind of like a slot machine, a storytelling slot machine. We'll have a couple of openings, we'll have a couple of act ones, we'll have a couple of finales, and every time you get on board, it's like the handle gets pulled, and whatever comes up is a show. And George said, great, I love it. Okay. Got on a plane, came back. It was a very short meeting. But important, it didn't give me sightseeing in. And then this was a memo that came back from Lucasfilm that was sort of saying, okay, this is what we heard you say, and these are some of the destinations we think we'll go to. And out of that came what we called our first episode matrix. And this is where the show began. It's a little different from what we wound up with. It was a little overwhelming for Island and others when they said, you're going to how many places? How many places? But you can see that the basis of the idea that got people ultimately excited about the attraction was this, that said, that many column 1, that many column 2, that many column 3 gives you that many possibilities. And everybody got excited about that, saying, wow, that would really make it totally repeatable. And even if you had seen all those pieces, to come back again and again and say, I wonder what combination we're going to get. That was the major thing that got us to our green light. So here we are, moving through. Now, it's not like this is the only thing we're doing. We're working on a lot of other shows and things, so this is sort of like a, I want to say a hobby in one sense, to keep pushing things. We've got to do it, we've got to do it, we've got to do it, we've got to do it. And by December of 2005, we said, this is what we think we can accomplish. And if you look at this, it's pretty close to what we have in there now. A little bit of location changes in there, but basically the notion of 2 launches and 3 what we call detours and 3 finales, and then the column on the right. Moving forward, January 2007. We go up to meet with George Lucas, and we're taking the images you see here, and we're talking through George. This is what we think the show's going to be. We're going to have 2 openings. There's going to be a Darth Vader opening, and there's going to be a Stormtrooper opening, and those are the 2 openings. And the pod race we still think is a great idea, so let's go to Tatooine. Let's go to Hoth. We'd love to go to Hoth for all the Empire fans. Let's go to Kashyyyk. Kashyyyk, interestingly enough, was a suggestion of John Lasseter, who came in and we wanted to do a speeder bike thing. He said, why don't we go to Kashyyyk, the Wookiee planet? So, let the Wookiee win. Coruscant. Naboo, we hadn't gone underwater at this point. We sort of felt like underwater might be too difficult to achieve. Well, we thought falling off a waterfall would be fun. But that changed a little bit. And of course, you've got to have a Death Star. And so the Death Star was in there as well. And this we took to George, and we called it our story matrix 3.5. And we called it, oh look, and here suddenly we've added some transmissions. We picked 3.5 in our discussions with George because we wanted to take advantage of, as you saw there, the most iconic Star Wars places and faces. And being between the two sets of trilogies gave us, roughly, gave us the most freedom to have as many wonderful places and characters. Now I know a few fans are saying, wait a minute, Mr. Fitzgerald, Hoth, no, this doesn't fit there. But George said, it's Disneyland. How can you not do Hoth? So we said we're loosely there in the time frame. But he was like, come on, you're not going to do Hoth because you're being so literal. He said, the films are one thing, books are one thing. Every medium is unique, and Disneyland, is totally unique, and you've got to go for the greatest hits. So this is what we took in. Marianne McLean is our visual effects producer, media producer of the show, wanted to bring the book, because in this very high-tech world, we actually brought this as a book, like a gift. Mr. Lucas. And it flipped out. You could flip all the layers out. It was kind of tricked out. It was very fun. But this is pretty much what you see, except for the fact that we had a little change in our transmission as we went. So, moving forward. The next trip to George, we brought storyboards of all the sequences. And you can see that even in this early phase, it's pretty close to, it's very close to what we had at the end. And we're starting to do an indication of the script. Steve Spiegel, a very talented writer on Star Tours Adventures Continue, writing the dialogue. You'll see that our pilot is Ace. We'll talk more about that later. Here's Darth Vader, and you can see we've already sort of tricked out to say we want to have a tug of war with Darth Vader. And we're going to go backwards. Right from the start, we said one should go backwards, one should go forward. How do we make them as different as possible? So here we are going backwards. Lightspeed, there's R2 is still with us. And here we are in the, inadvertently in the Boonty Eve Classic. And 3PO has, I've always wanted to do this. We try to put homages to the original show as well as Star Wars, of course. And you can see that Marianne's already indicating here in theater effects and the motions that we wanted to do, etc. We had the commentators in this version, but they went away, as things do. And then, of course, the battle at the end. They saying I have a very bad feeling about this. Interesting line, Steve. The drill droids landing on the windshield. Still, coming back to that notion of breaking the windshield. We didn't let them break the windshield because, of course, at the altitude that we're at, it would be a very short ride. But going the wrong way in the tunnel, all the things that they're in there now were in these set of storyboards, including the landing platform at the end. And at the end of this very great presentation, waiting for what George had to say, he said, I don't do storyboards anymore. So we packed up our bags, went back to Imagineering, and the next thing we did was to create animatics of all the sequences. And George is right, because storyboards can lie. You can cheat in storyboards. You can make it look like you can cover huge ground in storytelling. And the reality is we were going to live with frame accurate to the original show, exactly that length. And we had to prove to George that everything we wanted to do, we could do. So we spent the next several months creating animatics, and we took these back to George. Sort of like going back to the wizard. They brought the broomstick. They brought the animatics. What do you think? And that went really well. So we thought that since it's D23, and we don't usually show this kind of stuff, but we thought you might like to see, well, what do you mean? What did you show George Lucas? I mean, we hadn't started ILM yet. So what do we do? So this is one of the... This is an animatic of one of the sequences from the show, and you get a sense for, in 2008, what Star Tours looked like.
Star Tours 113, you are cleared for takeoff.
Roger, Control. Well, it looks like we're number one for departure, so sit back, relax, enjoy the flight. Stormtroopers. It's does not look good.
Shut down your engines, Captain, and prepare to be boarded.
This is a civilian flight.
We know you have the stolen plans.
Plans, reverse thrusters.
Not so fast.
He's got us in some kind of force field.
I want those plans.
R2, give me the main guns. Hold on. Shields up and punch in those hyperspace coordinates. There's no time for calculations. Light speed. Punch it. Where are we now? Hoth. We've lost our stabilizers. See what you can do, R2. Seatbelts, folks. This could get bumpy. R2, I really need those stabilizers. Carrying walkers. What are they doing here? We've been hit. Don't worry, folks. We're safe now. Or not. Brace yourselves. R2, I need those engines and stabilizers now. Hold on. What transmission? Put it up.
This is Viceroy Bail Organa of Alderaan. Hidden aboard your vessel are secret plans that are vital to the rebellion. These plans must be delivered safely to the rendezvous point and transmitting to your R2 unit. Good luck, Star Tours, and may the Force be with you.
What do you say? Should we join the rebellion? Yeah! Then light speed, R2. What? They didn't say anything about a battle. R2, plot us a course out of this mess and get us down to the surface. Got to the stabilizers. We're losing control. I see the ship. There's nothing we can do. Hang on! Prepare for impact. R2, I still need those stabilizers. Online? Good. It's about time. This way. Maybe not. There's the landing platform. Hang on.
Star Tours 1138, welcome to Coruscant.
I sure hope those stolen plans come in handy. I guess we're all in the rebellion now. May the Force be with you.
You know, it's there. Changes happen, and that's what's kind of fun about it. One of the ones that happened as we were in production on the show, we met with George, I would say almost every 3 weeks when we were in production, which was amazing. Having worked on the first show where George was so busy that we saw him just a few times, it was fantastic to be able to meet with him on a regular basis and like a master's class with the master, which was fantastic. And one day, in the middle of our review, and we had run Destiny Stop, he said, you know, I don't think we'll be carrying the stolen plans. Now, we thought it would be really cool. It's like, we are the missing link, you know, between the episodes. We had the plans that show up in episode 4 in Star Tours. And I said, no, I think we've done that one. So why don't we put like a speaker on the simulator and have, you know, a rebel spy, and then, you know, someone will say something and you'll play a line out of the speaker, say, yeah, I'm the rebel spy. And so, you know, we got in the car, and on the way back, we always had our conversations in the car driving back as we sorted through George's notes. And I was like, well, you know, that because people have wanted it so many times, that pretty soon they'll know it's just a speaker. You know, what if we could really pick a guest and make them a rebel spy? So Kathy Rogers, our show producer, the next day, he says, well, how did it go? I went, great. And it did go great. He approved based on the basis of V.S. Animatics. He said, great, we're ready for production. I was like, oh, here we go. But he said, we got one little change. He said, what's that? I said, well, we want to have a rebel spy thing. Is there a way that we could like capture an image of the guest and put them into the monitor on the side so that they could become a part of the show? And I said, okay, let me look at it. And in great Imagineering fashion, came back and said, you know, the guys think we can do that. I think we can do it. And then, you know, you never stop there. He said, okay, well, do you think you could take the image of the guest and actually put it in the movie? And they're like, oh, gosh, we'll give you one. Give you an image. So, well, let's go think about that. And they came back and figured out how to do that. And it's one of the things that, you know, George made these changes as we went along in our show that really had a huge impact. And we didn't realize at the time. At the time, we were sort of struggling with how do we deal with the node and what do we do. And we came back and said, we think there's a way that we can do this. And put a guest in. He thought it was great. And so on we went. So instead of having the stolen plans...
Prepare to be boarded, Captain.
I'm afraid there's been a terrible mistake. I have seen...
We know you have this rebel spy on board.
I've never seen that human before.
So that was really cool. And of course, we had the, you know, the idea was that the Empire was scanning through lots of images. So there are lots of, and I know you're a crowd that likes this, there are lots of little hidden things in those images. For example, have any of you ever seen this one? It's there, he's there, and so are a lot of other people. Because we like to put people in our shows for our little inside jokes. So yes, George is in there. And now it was time for ILM. So he had approved the animatics. We were ready to go, and now you bring in the big guns, you bring in the best of the best in the world, ILM. And the first thing they started to do are these incredible pieces of art that they would, you know, come to meet with us and say, okay, so we're thinking this kind of look for the launch. This is the sort of spaceport. What do you think? That's great. Or, you know, well, this is kind of look we're thinking of for Hoth. What do you think? That's great. We're liking all this. Naboo, this is the idea of the hangar. And I remember we had that one where we were going off the waterfall. Well, George said, no, I think we should go underwater. So great, let's go underwater. That, you know, part of our goal on this was to make the motion of the simulator as different as the places we picked. And so the places we picked were picked partially for the fact that they were iconic, and partially for the fact that we wanted them so different. You know, a white ice planet and a green jungle, you know, and an orange desert, so that you absolutely, as a guest, knew, wow, I went to different places. So we decided we'd have an underwater sequence and we'd have this great, you know, crashing finale. And so they said, well, this was our idea for the hangar. I was like, wow, that's great. And of course, the Death Star. And since we're between episodes 3 and 4, it's the original Death Star under construction. Because who wouldn't want to see that? Kashyyyk was probably the most challenging for them because for you fans of the movies, we don't see a lot of Kashyyyk in the film. And so this was the one that I think ILM kind of went, wow, we're going to have to really invent a lot more of this planet, which we were thrilled about because we thought this is probably what our guests would like to see is show me some stuff I'd never seen before as well as the stuff I love. So we started with those images and then we got to work. So Marianne was sitting in the front row and Bill George, the incredibly talented director from ILM who worked with us, we're off to Alaska to start scouting locations for Hoth. Not that we were going to film there, but to take images that could be composited and used to create the look of Hoth that was different from the look of Hoth in the movie since we were covering more distance. So they had a very cool trip looking at ice formations. And we had lots of other shoots that we were doing. You know, the film is obviously mostly digital, but there are some things that you need to do the good old-fashioned way. Like if you want to have a Wookiee hit a windshield, you know, you do it for real. Poor guy. Could you do it a little more? Could you hang on a little longer. Show business. And we had other elements that we had to shoot for the show, live action pieces that would be composited into it. This is an ending that, for those of you who know the show, recognize this film clip, but you're probably wondering who some of the people are in the clip, and we'll give you a little peek of some of them. So would you like to get into our work?
Can you do that?
Like Marianne is sitting right here. Take a bow, Marianne. It's fun again. And then we were also shooting the pre-show. So this is what we built on a stage in Los Angeles. And you can see how we sort of finished it off digitally. Just adding pieces. We wanted to put a lot more comedy in the show than we had in the original show, and we wanted to put a lot more show in the show, frankly. I mean, if you think about it, when the original show opened, we didn't have Fast Pass, and all of our show timings were calculated on how long you would be in the queue. But once Fast Pass came along, of course, the standby people were in the rooms longer than intended, which always bugs us. You don't want to hear what we call a rollover. So we decided to lengthen everything. So it's like, let's do 20-minute pre-show and a 20-minute droid room, and let's create all new material for the load corridor with lots of stuff to see, so that every time you go, the goal is you can always discover something new in there. This is Glenn McIntosh. He's the very talented animation supervisor director from ILM. And here we were working out one of the gags for preload with the little pit droids doing a windshield wiping gag. And there's Glenn acting out for Ace for later. This is Scott Sohan, he's the editor on the show here, showing them how to do it. And look at all the ways ILM gave us for windshield wipers. You can have that one. You can have that one. You can have lefty. You can have that one. Or you can have that one. That's the one we picked. We like that the best. But that was the fun with ILM, is they would actually give us all these choices, saying, okay, you asked for a windshield, so now the guys have come up with a couple variations. It's like, wow, it was really so much fun working with them. Great group. This is those beautiful storyboard images you saw earlier. And here he is working on Ace. I think this is an image some of you probably saw in the Lincoln pre-show at Disneyland for a while, when we were figuring out our saga of our droids. Because we picked our 3.5 as our time frame, unfortunately, we couldn't have Rex anymore. Because Rex, as you know, was his first flight, his first day on the job. And going back in time, we thought, ooh, we got to have another robot. So we spent a lot of time trying to figure out who that robot should be. And we had a contest at Imagineering, open to all of our designers, and we got lots of different robot designs for Ace. We got this one. We got a lot of these. Some are a little too sinister because, again, we're going for comedy. That's really scary. Someone needed some therapy. And lots more. But in the end, we wound up going with something along the lines of this because we wanted it to be a transition. We wanted to say, well, we're earlier in time for Star Tours, so we're going to have to make changes on the designs in here. But, just you want to feel as if that Rex was an evolutionary, coming from something earlier that had a little bit of his look. So, the visor, the mouth, the kind of overall body shape, all sort of led us in this direction. And we continued to evolve it to this look, which ILM then remodeled, sent up to ILM. They put it in the Star Tours colors. And this became our pilot Ace. And we were moving along with this for quite some time. But something changed. And the reason it changed is we were trying to go 180 degrees away from Rex, from the kind of skittish, nervous, high-strung character that robot was, and that was voiced obviously by Pee Wee Herman, Paul Reubens, in the original show. And so we kept trying to bring this sort of football player, Top Gun personality to this robot because we wanted it to be so different from the old show. And every time we met with George, we'd get back in the car and go, I don't think he's buying it. And we recorded Patrick Warburton for it. Very funny script. Nope, wasn't buying it. And one day in the car, I said, guys, I think we have to bite the bullet. George wants the same type of character as we had in the original show. And so the next day I called Kathy Rogers, the show producer, and said, how'd it go? I said, went great. We got a little change. George isn't buying the pilot. And she said, well, this is problematic because, we're, scheduled. We got to have this thing done. So the next morning driving to work, it's like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We've got to solve this robot thing. And then it was one of those little aha moments going, oh my gosh, we have this character already. It's C-3PO. He's high-strung, he's nervous, he's comedic. Everybody knows him, so we've got a great shorthand for storytelling. And, came to work and said, guys, we have our robot. Said, what do you mean we're behind schedule? We're never going to make it. It's like, it's C-3PO. Oh, we already have the tooling, but we have a figure in the pre-show. And it's like, will it fit? Will it work? And our animation team did an amazing job of figuring out how to get C-3PO into the cockpit. We went back to George. We pitched the idea to George. George loved it. And suddenly we had a whole new pilot, an old pilot, someone we know and love. But George felt it was really important for us to explain to the audience, because we still wanted to have Ace, because it didn't make sense. Well, why is 3PO piloting this? And it was so convoluted. And I said, well, we need a switch. We need to make the audience believe that Ace is supposed to be our pilot, going to be our pilot, and then somehow he gets switched. And we worked it out in our head, and George made us go back after we completed work with ILM and said, no, you need to film a scene, create a scene that explains exactly to the audience how that switch happens. And so this shows you the progression as we went from rough to finish, and shows you kind of the way we worked with ILM and George, how we'd rough things in and then they get a bit smoother and smoother. So this is the scene that you know from the pre-show that connects the dots, as George said. He wanted to connect all the story dots clearly.
Excuse me, Captain.
Who are you?
C-3PO, systems analyst.
It's about time. The binary motivator's acting up.
Well, binary is like a second language to me, but I can't fix them any better from here.
Just make it quick. We're scheduled to depart in a few minutes.
So there's no time to lose. Off you run, shoot. Tour droids. Really? What? Oh, now this is malfunctioning too.
So, story complete. On we go. Now, who doesn't love this person? I love this woman, and she was so sweet, and we had so much fun with her doing the original show. We could not find her. We could not find her. We looked, and we looked, and we looked, and finally the clock ran out, and we had to recast. And I was like, guys, I don't think we can find another person for this. What do you mean? Of course we can. No, not another person. We need a droid. If we can't have her, let's create a droid and get more Star Wars into the universe. So, ILM gave us some options, and we selected this character. Whoops. We selected that character from episode 2, I think, from Dex's Diner. And then we gave her the Star Tours look with ILM. And said, great, we've got our spoke spot for Star Tours. Multilingual, thankfully, because we needed that for our safety skill. And then we tried many, many voices out against this picture. And the one that we loved most was Allison Janney, who you know as Peach and lots of other roles. She was so hysterically fun and so sweet. So we had our spoke spot for Star Tours. And then it was time to get going on the rest of the attraction. Because we had said 3.5, and it's saying 3.5. Suddenly we said, well, we got a lot of changes we need to make to the attraction. And we felt it was important to do so that when you guys came in and saw it again, it would be familiar. And you say, oh, thank God they didn't ruin it. But it would also be fresh, where you'd say, oh, cool, it's got a new look. Oh, yeah, there's Rex. So we started with, obviously, these images. This is a first piece of work by Scott Drake to sort of say what the pre-show would look like. We decided that, like many airlines, United Airlines, they changed the paint scheme. A lot of airlines changed their color schemes over time. We decided to flip it. So we said, well, let's put the blue on the inside and the orange on the outside. Because blue and orange would be Star Tours colors, and they would always keep those colors. We decided we needed a whole new status board that should have media on it the entire time that you're in a queue, so there's always something to look at and see, with new commercials, as we love the commercials from the past, but thought we needed new ones. And we spent a lot of time detailing the Star Speeder 1000, since we're back in time, what it would look like. And this is a turnaround model that ILM created for us to buy off and say, okay, that's it, so we could go into production. And then the goose droids had some work. Now, for those of you who don't know, how all of you know, they're called goose droids because on the original show we stole them from America Sings one night because we didn't have the budget to have animated figures in the droid room. And I don't know that anybody noticed. So the barbershop quartets became trios in America Sings, and we got 2 droids. And they worked really hard for many, many years. And so what we said was, well, we're earlier in time, so they would probably, had more parts on them initially, and then over time the parts fell off or they didn't get maintained, and so that they became the sort of grimier look that was appropriate for the early Star Tours kind of look of the droid room. So they got a new look, a fresh look, and then we said, well, we really should. Star Tours is really very, very simple. It really is Star Wars plus going to LAX is the ride. It's that simple, really. It's Star Wars and the airport together. And so we said, well, what's changed in the 20 years since we did the original show in air travel? And the answer was security. So we said, well, maybe we should make this scene a security scene and put the droids to work in new roles. So G290 and G240 got new jobs, and one doing luggage scanning, and of course, just as he does in the old show, he's more interested in talking to the passengers than he is in looking at what he should be looking at. And so things get by him that shouldn't get by him, and things don't get by him that should get by him. That's kind of the personality of this droid. And Susan Day, our production designer, had great fun in giving him this very cool metallic blue look, so spiffed them all up. And we had a lot of fun. This is the last thing we did in the show, and George, again, kept encouraging us to have fun, have fun, have fun. This is Disneyland and Disney parks. Put more humor into it. So we said, all right. So we decided for the luggage scanner, we had dozens and dozens of bags in here. We said, well, let's just have some fun and let's have some Star Wars things, let's have some Star Tours things, let's have some Disneyland things in here for guests to discover. And I'm sure you've discovered most of them. So, from things that maybe aren't too silly, like Stormtrooper helmets, to things that are silly, like an Ewok playing a Stormtrooper helmet, to Captain EO robots being smuggled through. To Wally's possessions. In here, yeah, there's the booth with the plant and the video VHS. To some Disney movie references. Yeah, Black Hole. To Madame Leota, who always travels with spell books. So we just sort of went for it. Said, let's just have fun with this and be a little bit silly. Why not? And then we have the human scanner, the other droid. And because we had changed our role on the pilot, and we loved Patrick Warburton so much, we called him back in and said, we went a different way with the pilot on the show. And we didn't use him for the little short scene. We thought that was, either the bigger thing. So, but we do have another role in the show if you'd like to take it, and that is the scanning droid. And he said, I'd love to do it. And he came in, and that guy could read the phone book and he'd be on the floor laughing. Everything he says is funny. So we had several sessions that Steve Spiegel and some writers worked together. Steve directed, and and Kevin Rafferty came in too, and we were all just cracking up. And Lucas, said go for it, have fun, and improved it all. And so we just did silly stuff like that.
Excuse me, did anyone drive here today in a brown land speeder, model X-34? If you did, an angry little green guy just handed me a note for you. It says, parked in my space you are, have you towed, I will.
So, more comedy. More stuff to keep you entertained in the line. That was the goal. And there he is, recording it. He was so good. Years ago on the Soaring pre-show, which still is one of my favorite safety skills, you can't not look at the guy. He's hysterical. Anyway, then we had this was the old, in the old show we had a droid that was being welded behind the window, and we decided that this should be like, there used to be an old TV commercial for, I think, Samsonite luggage that had like an ape in his, pounding baggage. And we thought we should recreate that. And then as we went, no, let's just make it more like a window in the airport so that we can do gags. And we did a ton of gags in there too. And we put some hidden things in there for you guys that you may have seen. Everyone likes to have a hidden Mickey. So, do that. Somewhere. It's pretty solid. And then for the fans of, Star Wars saga, someone you love. Now, come on now. George has that. He has that statue up in his office, a carbonite of Jar Jar Binks. So we didn't come up with the idea, but we just thought it would be fun to put in there. So we packed a lot of things in the queue line for you to discover as you come back time and time again to keep it interesting. So do any of you know who this person is? I mean, the woman in the blue, not Keith. This is Jenny Mulholland, an Imagineer, who was the scheduler on the original Star Tours show. And again, because, we had no credits to put together for that show, it was like, Jenny, would you be our seatbelt lady? And Jenny has graciously continued to play that role.
Fasten the restraint. Pull the strap out from the right side of the seat and snap it into the console on your left.
シートベルトは座席右側から引き落ち、左側のバックルにセットしてください。
To fasten your restraint, use the yellow strap to pull the belt out from the right side of the seat and snap the belt into the buckle on your left.
Thank you, Janny, for doing that. My good friend Michael Cicchino, like that. We had a lot of fun with Michael Cicchino working on Star Tours, and it was kind of an interesting situation because he's a huge Star Wars fan and a huge Star Tours fan, as you'll see in a minute. And we brought him in to do the music for the show and help us look at that. And he hadn't been with us for, a couple of weeks when I got a call from Lucasfilm saying, there's been a disturbance in the Force. Just not how you want a phone call to start. We said, well, what is the disturbance? And he said, well, the disturbance is that John Williams has heard that you're doing Star Tours and he wants to do it. So I said, great, come on in. So John Williams actually came to Imagineering, the first time he's ever worked with Disney, with us, certainly, and we showed him our animatics with Tempted Music, and he said, I think you'll be able to use the original cues from the films. He said, I don't think we have to rescore this. You can have the original, I'll help you. I'll have my music editor work with you. And so the music editor worked with John Dennis, our head of music at Imagineering, and we got all the cues lined up. And Michael Cicchino said, well, I'd like to do the pre-show. So I said, great, it's all yours. So Michael did these fantastically funny, and hard to hear because there's so much going on in that pre-show, but he did these sort of travelogue lounge versions of all the Star Wars themes. So the next time you're in there, when you see those commercials, listen to the music, because it's Michael Cicchino having fun with Star Wars. And here he is, after he killed me here, telling a little bit about working with us on the show.
Here we go. 3, 4, 5.
Old, and that kind of changed everything for me. So flash forward all of these years, and they said you wanted to work on Star Tours. I was like, are you kidding me? Of course, why would I not want to work on Star Tours? I looked at it from the point of view of a fan, which I was. And for me, I just wanted it to feel like Star Wars. I wanted to put the person who was in that queue, waiting in line in this world. You're going to be there queuing through, and we're going to be presenting to you these travel log videos as you're going through, explaining to you the wonderful places that you will visit once you get on board. This is going to be the greatest vacation you've ever had. That's what I wanted it to feel like. So when people are watching, they're feeling like, yes, this is what I want. John's melodies kind of lend themselves to anything. They're so good, you can really do anything with them. I didn't want to mess with them harmonically, I just wanted to present them at a different rhythmic level. In these arrangements, we have harpsichord, rhythm guitar, both acoustic and electric. We have things called boo bands, which are basically tuned bongos, a lot of exotic percussion. You have your brass and your woodwinds. You have your string section, as you would as anywhere else. But the woodwind guys double, the flute player will whistle instead of playing the flute, and these guys bring to the table this incredible expertise. And all these guys have worked with me on everything I've ever done. And we're just like kind of this really tight team of people. Literally, you can put anything in front of them and they'll play it. It doesn't even matter. They come here to a date having no idea what they're going to play that day. And they're so good that whatever you put in front of them, they go look at it and they're, okay. They are the kind of the NFL of the orchestral players, you know. That's kind of doesn't get better than what these guys can do.
He said was, you're not going to change the Star Tours chimes, are you? No, we're not. Okay, good. I can't change that. And that last piece that they played was funny because in the pre-show status board, we have that Weather Channel thing. And we said, could you do something that's kind of like a CNN Weather Channel thing? And so he did this endlessly looping Star Wars theme going over and over and over again, which was just, we were on the floor when we heard it. So Michael Giacchino and John Williams for the music. We were very, very lucky to have the best of the best. And like I said, we kept the things that we liked from the old show. And then, as we always do, we mix in the field. So this is JK in the cabins here at Disneyland, mixing the show. Very complicated. Those simulator cabins are very different front to back, trying to find a sweet spot of everything so that you could understand the dialogue, sound effects, and still have enough music to give you the drama of it. And then, meanwhile in Florida, we're doing two at once. So it was crazy. The team would be flying. Where is it? Now she's in Florida. Where's Catherine? She's in Florida. Now she's back tomorrow. We were like reviewing the show in two places at once, and then it was decided that Florida would open before Disneyland. So, rush, hurry up. Here's George and Joey, our phenomenal programmer, looking at 3PO in the cabin, and George was really, really pleased with how 3PO turned out, as we all were. It's quite cool to see him in the pilot's chair. And then here we all are. This is the day that George came down to do the final buy-off of the show. We're all smiling because he did buy it off. He said, that was great. And Howard Rothman sitting next to him, and Rick, the producer of the Star Wars film, said, it's about time you did this. So they all came down, wrote it, and gave us a thumbs up, and then we had to scramble to get ready, and scramble we did. And then, of course, as I said, we opened in Florida first, and some of you may have seen a little bit of the huge opening that they did in Florida. If not, here's a little clip.
My Star Destroyer to prepare for my arrival. This isn't over. In fact, this destructive conflict has just begun. You haven't seen the last of me. Set our course for the Anaheim system.
Great job. It's a really terrific opening. I'm very excited for the show team. But I would say most exciting for all of us was coming back to Anaheim, where it all started, for the opening on June 3rd.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chairman Walt Disney Parks and Resorts, Tom Staggs.
I'm really glad to see you all here today as we prepare to travel to a galaxy far, far away. So I think it's time to officially cut the ribbon and let you all experience this great attraction for yourselves.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are now invited to take a journey on Star Tours. The adventures continue.
I love that the Disneyland entertainment people, have the woman with the hair to sort of match the safety room. So that's kind of, as quickly as we put it together, that's a little behind the scenes of how we created it. It certainly was a long journey for us, but I have to say, I'm glad that we sort of held out. I think that what we have in there now with the 54 different combinations of rides is a stronger concept than had we just done the pod race, and will allow all of you to ride it again and again and again, and even though you may have seen all the individual pieces, to come out and say, I wonder what we're going to get. I wrote it yesterday with John Lasseter 4 times, And he didn't get everything, but after the fourth ride, he said, we need to get off and have a drink. We need to get the Trader Sam's right away, which we did. But he was thrilled with it. He couldn't believe the clarity of the imagery, the comedy. He said, this is so much funnier. This is really great. He was laughing away. He has to come back, though, because he hasn't gotten all the segments. And hopefully some of you haven't gotten all the segments, too. That's the whole idea. So really, I'm not kidding when I say that it was designed, well, of course it's designed for our audience completely, which is what we have to do as Imagineer. It was specifically targeted for the people sitting in this room, for the people that love Star Wars, love Star Wars. It is for you guys. And I have to say that they asked me to write a little blog on the show as we went along, and I would read the responses back. And it was interesting. I had no idea that there was so much love out there for Rex. And it was because of that I said, Kathy, is there anything there? Yeah, we got a little change. What now? What do you want now? We're giving you everything. We said, we've got to put Rex in the droid room. And we have to have his soundtrack in there too. You've got to hear him. So because of you saying, I love Rex, will Rex be in there? I hope he's in there. Please don't ruin it. We put Rex in there in Florida as well as California, so that there's lots of little hidden things that are just for you. So anyway, I'm glad that what we hear is that you're enjoying it. We're thrilled to create it. I know that George Lucas is thrilled. Everyone at Disney is thrilled. And it's going to take a while to write all 54 combinations, so we should probably get over there now and get going. Thank you guys very much.
On behalf of Walt Disney